Hello. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Empty Space Talkback as part of the Annie Stripped project in Rollins College Department of Theater and Dance. My name is Jordan Barnett. I'm a senior at Rollins College, and I served as the associate director for this very unique production. Today, me alongside five very special guests will be here talking about the production, answering any questions you guys may have about the piece. Um, if you want, when you leave comments in the YouTube, we will see all those comments. So please feel free at any point, leave those questions in that YouTube and we can look at them. It doesn't have to be at any specific point. You can start leaving them right now if you guys would like to. Alrighty. Well, the first guest I would like to bring out is we actually had the opportunity to work alongside and talk with the playwright of this amazing piece, and she is with us today. You can welcome Miss Sienna Ledger. Sienna tells
Hi.
stories using different mediums and lives in Southern California. Sienna spent most of quarantine building gayforplays.com, which features plays, poems, and personal video documentaries. Sienna's plays include The Empty Space, Man and Moon, Inosculation, Man and Man, and Say No to One Paseo. Sienna has 3 plays being produced across the country in 2021. Sienna thanks you for the time it took to be here and to hear this. And Sienna hates cheese but loves onions and hopes that does not offend you. Hi, Sienna. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. This is such a very, very cool opportunity. We thank you so much. All right. Our second guest is Mac Gifford. Mac Gifford served as the scenic designer for this production. Mac is a junior here at Rollins, majoring in theater with a directing and performance emphasis. And this is their first time designing a set for the Annie, along with their very first virtual set. Hi, Mac. Thanks for being here. Our third guest is Margaret Stewart. Margaret served as the assistant director for The Empty Space. Margaret is a third-year student here at Rollins with a double major in history and theater. Within theater, she has a double emphasis in directing and dramaturgy. She is also a member of the Rollins Dance Association, Rollins Tap Club, Rollins Players, and the Theater Honor Society Alpha Psi Omega. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Jordan. So happy to be here.
Yay. And then we have Nicole Ponce, who is going to look very familiar to some of you. Nicole played Mind in this production of The Empty Space. Nicole is a junior double majoring in computer science and theater. In conjunction to performing in Annie Stripped, she's involved with quite a bit on campus, including Rollins Players, Rollins Improv Players, and ACM, Immersion, and oh, so much more. She is so proud of the entire cast and crew that worked tremendously hard in putting on this production despite the current state of the world. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. And then finally, we have Juan Cabrera. Juan is a sophomore theater major with an emphasis in both performance and directing. Along with performing, he is also a carpenter for the Annie Russell Scene Shop, and he's an RA at Elizabeth Hall. This is his third time performing a play on Zoom, and he is honored to be a part of such an amazing cast and crew. Hi, Juan. Thanks for being here.
Hello.
Bud.
Thank you for having me, Jordan.
All righty. So these are all the guests. So the first question that I want to bring up is from Gianna. Why did I just say Gianna? I know Gina. Gina Fawaz. I think I mixed Gina and Sienna. Gina Fawaz, who is a student at Rollins, has a question for Sienna. How, Sienna, did you choose your concepts for this show, and which concepts didn't make the cut?
It's a great question. To be completely honest, I think the way it went was the first concepts that came into my mind were the ones I chose, and the ones that didn't make the cut were the ones I didn't think of by the time I wrote it and had to send it off. So that is, I think, completely honest. But to break it down, I think in a little bit more, with a little bit more thought, I chose things that I felt like were milestones with throughout a lifetime that I've either witnessed or experienced myself. But like everyone experiences fear. Everyone has some relationship with tomorrow and with a level of having dreams and what their reality is, and that at times it can be disassociated from one another. So basically, kind of just taking those things and seeing how the mind relates to those concepts over and over again, though it has a different perspective. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answered it fully, but
Yeah, no, I think that was great, Sienna. Thank you so much. I think we have our next question. It's for Helena Sanchez, who's also a student at Rollins. This is for the actors. The audience obviously gets to interpret the concepts and characters however they want, but did you as actors have a solidified idea of who this character was for you? Oh, that's a very good question. For Juan, Nicole, do either one of you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. It's really interesting. Our director, Missy Barnes, she kind of wanted us to think of a bunch of different options that it could be, but she let us know that we don't need to answer all the questions. That was really helpful as an actor because I'm very uptight and I need to know the answer to everything. And I was finding it so impossible because the second I thought I had a grasp of this character, I was like, oh wait, but this could be it also. So I think what we really connected to the most was the emotions, and at least for me, in letting that shine through, so that way the audience can make up their mind. Because with any piece of art, once you make it, once you create it, it's out into the world. It's not yours anymore. So you can't be too stubborn about what you think you portray.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think the way that I kind of approached this was I saw Mind. I mean, I think Mind in general is like one of the most human characters, even though all of them definitely personify different qualities that people can relate to. But I just saw Mind kind of as myself. I remember after me and Juan and my roommate Sam, we actually read it all together, and they were like, Mind is kind of like you. Like it just felt very natural. And I felt very connected to this character because it's kind of like the way that I talk. And I just really, really saw it as a very like human, relatable kind of character, which is why I felt like I had a really fun time exploring myself while also exploring like the differences between me and this character.
Beautiful. Thanks, Juan. Thanks, Nicole. This is Mike Mack or Michael McNamara, another student at Rollins. Amazing piece, he says. Has a question for Sienna. What is the nature of Time's relationship with the other characters? Why does Mind experience its relentless march in full while the moon is unchanged by it? Oh, that's interesting. Sienna, I think you're muted. Yep,
am I
you're all
good
good.
now? Okay, cool. Basically, I think that time doesn't exactly have a relationship to the concepts without mind, if that makes sense. Like mind is every time time and mind meet, that is when the experience of the empty space can't happen. Like the empty space doesn't exist without mind, basically. But mind needs time in terms of having a life, basically. Um, and why the second part of the question was, can you remind me?
Can you put the question back up again, Chelsea, if you still have it?
It was something
Or I think it's
about
right here.
moon.
Why does
Okay,
Mind
cool.
experience its relentless march in full while the moon is unchanged by it?
Yeah. I think because moon is I think that's I mean that could be completely up to interpretation because perhaps Moon does experience time, because Moon isn't quite like the rest of the concepts in that Moon is kind of always there, and is a thing that exists. So perhaps there is a relationship, but I don't think that Moon is necessarily being dictated in the same way, or perhaps in the same increments of time as like mind is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you. From Mozzie Twinkle, this is for, I guess, everyone. How did it feel doing a play virtually? And I think there could be a unique perspective from, especially the directors. This was very different for us. And then Mac, of course, from a scenic perspective. But does anyone want to take this one? Margaret, go for it.
I can take at least from the directing perspective. I guess the motto that we kind of took throughout the process was using technology to our advantage and using what the opportunities it gave us in order to really expand on the play and the meaning of the play and the dialogue. So as we talked with Missy a lot, how can we use the words of the play and move within the confines of this little tiny box, and how do we use that space to really find meaning? And also, how do we use things like platforms like Zoom and rehearsal? Like, we use the breakout rooms quite a bit to help work with individual actors. So it was often like doing a play virtually is taking advantage of that technology.
Yeah, to go off of what Margaret said, it was definitely an interesting experience. Over the summer when I first started working on this project, we were under the impression that the show is going to be live, so I actually went through the whole process of making renderings and everything for a completely different look. And I had to basically rework that in maybe a week, which was a fun challenge. It was certainly my thinking about it was just how can I create an empty space with 8 different empty spaces, and how can we make this all one world. But I think it was an amazing thing because I know with such an abstract play and a lot of it based on physicality, how can we use their confined space to help them help the actors really bring out their character even more and giving them those possibilities. And the actors were amazing people to work with. I'm not just saying that because 2 of them are here.
Awesome. Thank you, Mac. Actors, did either of you have anything? I think we're going to move on. All right. This is from Tiara. Tiara, another student at Rollins. How, as actors, did you make connections to other actors, even though you were only seeing them through the screen?
Dude, it was so annoying. It's very technical, which I mean, I kind of want to go into film after this, so it was a good experience for me. But definitely, you kind of had to figure it all out yourself. As in, one, there's already so many technical questions going in your head, like where to look at. Because if I'm looking directly at my camera, I look kind of cross-eyed. I have to look slightly above it. If I'm looking at Nicole on screen, I'm looking down. So there's all these technical questions that you need to like fill in first, and then it's about really feeling it. Missy is really about energy as a director. So we really had to kind of get a little hippy dippy with it and feel each other's energies. And I mean, it's so easy to act with Nicole. You could hear everything, every emotion she has in her voice, and I can just feel her presence when we're doing a scene together. That for me, it wasn't hard at all to make that connection once we got all the technical stuff out of the way.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, I would say it is definitely weird because you have to look at the camera for it not to look weird, because if you're looking down, then it doesn't look like you're connecting. So what I did, I kind of used I transferred what I felt in rehearsal, and it was mostly listening, I'd say. That's the biggest thing, because even when you're acting and you're not necessarily able to see someone, you're able to feel their presence and hear what the intonations in their voice are, and their inflections and all these different kinds of stuff. And I think also because we had a lot of bonding, I was really, really lucky to be able to be at every single rehearsal, because I had to have one scene with a different person each day. So I was able to connect with everyone really, really well. and it was a lot of bonding that helped me.
Yeah, I think it helped from looking at it from the director perspective. I think it helped a lot that everyone had great chemistry with one another, because it added less of a barrier when you guys had to do it through Zoom and through a box on a screen. And that kind of changed our attack as directors, where we couldn't use physicality to our advantage. We couldn't use really blocking or anything to our advantage. It was strictly dialogue and Sienna's words, which of course are fantastic. So really digging into the analysis of that dialogue and using just the basis of what is in that script to tell that story, and making character and emotional choices from there. But there's no physical, not much at least, of a physical exploration that we could really use to our advantage. It was just analysis of the dialogue, which is very rare, I think, from most live performances. So I think that was definitely a challenge, but I think it worked for this play. I don't think it could work for every play, but I think for this play, I think it almost benefited a lot from it, at least from the way that we approached it. Cool. Another one from Gina Fawaz. I said it right this time. Nicole, mind persists throughout the entire show. You interact with all of the other concepts and characters. So my question is, which relationship came the easiest and which needed more research?
I would say, and I think it was very evident in our beginning rehearsals, I would say Moon. For some reason, me and Laura, we just were able to connect really, really easily together. And I saw it more as like a motherly kind of relationship, a mother and like a child. And I'm very close to my mom. So I was able to like just kind of remember how I feel when I feel safe and like I'm afraid, which I say a lot throughout the play. And just being able to like use that in that relationship. So that was the easiest one. And the one that I needed more research on, but with the help of Sienna, when we were able to like have some one-on-one time with the whole group, I would say was probably maybe time, because it's just such an interesting relationship that there is like romantic like a romantic foundation between those two. So it was just really interesting to see like the intentions behind that, but then eventually it was really, really great. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. Sienna, I have a question for you. You kind of shared this with the cast a little bit when you came and talked to us, but I think everyone else might be very interested to know. This type of play is very unique. This is not a play that about these types of concepts and universality that we see very often. It's usually about realism and naturalism are very common right now, following an individual's experience and encouraging the audience to relate to a specific individual instead of a character that's more universal and about the human experience. So I guess from a very basic standpoint, what kind of inspired you to take that kind of approach for this play when writing it?
I would say a very, very fresh mind in terms of like the theater world, and just a desire to express what I think all of the plays really are talking about, like what everything ends up really being about at the end of it is all of these things that mind is meeting up against, and having a relationship more with the experience that they're having rather than with even the other mind like both minds are basically having an experience, and that's what creates these concepts basically. So whether you're interacting with yourself when you're alone or you're interacting with another person, it's these things that you're dealing with. And so that's kind of what I was trying to express without necessarily introducing another character, even though obviously there's characters as concepts, but not another person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Sienna. I appreciate that. Mac, for you, of course, your design obviously took a turn and you had to kind of adapt on the fly. But beyond, of course, going just virtual and having to do it in Zoom, of course, there's a pandemic going on. And so having to design in someone's personal space is different, and it's different in this time. So how are you able to design someone's private space during this age of COVID?
Well, for starters, and this will make more sense in a minute. This cast is truly amazing, wonderful people. I got to work with each of them individually on their space, and I am so grateful for their collaboration because I completely made a mess of all their rooms. They are wonderful for letting me do that. It was so creating this design, going from my original idea of having a lot of empty space in a black box theater setting with moving pieces, and now I am in a stationary box with 8 different boxes. Trying to create this whole world was fun. The biggest challenge I think was just figuring out how I can like stay true to my original idea in making it a COVID safe environment and to make a healthy, socially distant, empty space, which is all we wanted. So the designing with the people was a lot of one-on-one. We would use Zoom or WebEx, as a lot of Rollins students are aware of and have mixed feelings with. And they were great. I would we would be on the video over chatting, and I would be telling them to move your desk to the middle of your room, set up your camera like this, and whatever individual pieces would happen, we would play around. I also got thrown in the unofficial title of lighting designer, which, if anyone knows me, I do not know lights. It was a lot of trial and error. Lots of try this, try that, turn this on, turn this off. I'm sorry to everyone's electric bills. But it was great for collaboration. The actors in this cast were truly incredible. They were so willing and so giving. They were phenomenal to work with. I am glad that if I had to go through this roller coaster of a design, it was with this group.
Yeah, thank you, Mac. And I know one of the things we kind of hit our roadblock in is one of our, because we kind of lucked out that most of the cast was either on campus or in very close proximity. Shout out to Bernie. Hi, Bernie. The 7th guest that we didn't know we needed, but we all needed. But most of the cast was on campus or in very close proximity to campus. So any materials that they needed, you could either deliver them or put in a spot where they could pick it up. But then one of our cast members was farther away. So did that make that more challenging? How did that specific process work?
So it was definitely an extra hurdle. So within the cast, half of them were on campus and comfortable and consenting with me wearing a mask on both parties and coming in and helping them set up the space, mostly because they didn't trust themselves, which is understandable. I wasn't entirely confident, but you can't let them know that, well, you're turning the room upside down. It definitely required extra work on extra like video chats, and just really having them be like, I can't really help you, but find a way to do this. Here are my suggestions, but if I could sacrifice a chicken and make it happen and make this cloth stay up, I would. Or the lighting to be perfect for a while. I really struggle with the lighting. So any lighting designers out there, I appreciate you. it was certainly added challenges. A lot of it was just trial and error, and really just being grateful for having the cast members again, just being flexible and going with it, and trying different things. I was telling people to like put this on the floor, go on your bed, do that, and that's all it was. A lot of
Yeah.
fun chaos.
Thanks, Mac. I think we had another question. Yes. From Miguel Ponce. Wow, I wonder if there's any relation. Is the preparation to do a show like this different versus doing a show when you know people will be in the audience? And how do you keep that concentration and that focus?
I guess I'll
It's
jump.
pointed towards Nicole.
Okay.
Or Margaret.
think-
Yeah, go ahead and
oh.
Margaret first, and then we'll pass on.
Margaret, you go.
Sorry.
Ahead.
I think one thing that really helped, like coming from the director perspective, we did very extensive warm-ups that focused on grounding and getting the actors like used to their space and exploring their space. And I mean, warm-ups are important in every show, but I think it was important for this show specifically because they had their camera set up and they were able to explore their spaces and find that groundedness and concentration before we started the rehearsal. So I think going through those warm-ups was a great way for them to connect to that space and connect to their characters, especially on an online setting where it's just you in your room acting. I think going through that every day really helped them to get in that correct headspace.
Yeah, I would say also just the process of like getting ready. Like we all had costumes and we had to do makeup and hair. So that was the same general process, just we were doing it in our own homes, which I thought was like kind of funny because I was like, oh wow, we used to do this in dressing rooms, but now we're just doing it like in our bathrooms, which is still pretty cool. And still it has the same amount of commitment and like what's the word? I don't know. It has a lot of commitment that you have to still have because you're still performing, regardless of how many or how few people are watching. It always matters because you always have to care. If not, the audience won't care. Yeah.
Awesome. Juan, did you have anything to add to that? Otherwise, we're going to move on. Cool. All right. This is from Tiara. This is to Sienna. Time and mind have such a multi-layered relationship. Was there a specific relationship that you mirrored them after, or was it simply your thoughts on how time and the human mind interact with each other?
I definitely had a certain relationship in mind when I was writing this. And I modeled it. I wanted to model it like the feeling of a first love, like that first relationship that you felt something and then you felt the after feeling. Because you really only need a first, I think, and then everything else kind of you know what to expect, but it still feels the same, I think, every time. And that's kind of what I wanted to show, is that even though it is one specific relationship that they have, these things are just repeated with different people in them, different shoes that fill the time and the mind. And that can be romantic, it could be friends, it kind of that same love and heartbreak happens, I think, at so many different times in your life.
Awesome. Thank you, Sienna. It's from Alexandra P. This is for everyone. What is the one thing you would hope the audience would take away from this show?
I can start.
Go for it.
I think throughout the show, so long mind is stuck on this one day on September 4th, and I think for me the lesson that I would take from this, I would want people to take from this, is to live in the moment, to not get stuck in the past, and to not also get stuck looking too ahead in the future too often. to enjoy the now and feel and allow yourself to feel.
I would probably say that regardless of whatever happens, everything will be okay. I think that's one of the biggest lessons that Mind has to accept, that life is full of so much ugly, but there's also so much beautiful that's also hidden there that you may not see all the time. But I think remembering that things will be okay regardless of what happens is what I mostly took from the show.
I guess going off of what both Nicole and Juan have said, I think one thing that I loved about the show is the story of a universal human experience. So really, like as Sienna was talking about, like talking about these concepts that we all have in our lives. I think that's one thing about the universality of our humanity as people, and that's one thing to really think about, especially now. So.
Yeah, not to echo what everyone else has already said, but when I read this play over the summer to choose which of any script I wanted to work on, I immediately fell in love with this. I think especially now when, reading this back in quarantine, feeling very isolated from the world and just living my life through Zoom and WebEx, it is a little numbing to be human right now, and I found this play to be exactly why I am a part of the theater community. It was exactly to remember that this is the human experience, and that we as artists are all about just telling the human experience. And I think the universality of it was just so beautiful not to do.
Yeah, I think echoing, I'm just a broken record now, but I think I loved this play because there were no predetermined qualities or characteristics from a physical standpoint for any of the characters. It was completely a blank slate, and it's things like that, upon with it being concepts and it being about the human experience, that make the play truly universal and truly anyone can relate to, because it's no longer a point of someone looking at the person on stage and going, that person doesn't look like me, they don't have the same body type as me, they don't sound like me, they don't act like me, whatever. Going beyond that to characters that aren't defined by any sort of characteristic or something like that, I think helps relay a message, of course. But I think that is what theater is all about, is, of course, telling that message, evoking some sort of emotion, making a point, and making everyone feel. And if people don't feel, then that part of the audience was lost, and in some way we didn't succeed. And so I think for a play like this, where you don't have that boundary and have that barrier, everyone can relate. Therefore, we can all succeed, and everyone can enjoy and take away the message that Sienna created.
Well said, everyone. I really don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sienna. Joanna Brown, Joe B, who played Fear in The Empty Space. You recognize Joanna. She has, this is the last question. This is for everyone. In a constantly changing world such as ours in 2020, how do you see this unique creative experience contributing to future endeavors? Oh boy. Anyone want to take that one first? Margaret, go for it.
So I think from the doing the theater on the internet on the Zooms, I think especially now working on this production, from that perspective, I think for me, it made it seem like it's possible to still do theater. Even when theater is very far removed from what we think of theater, I think having it in this environment really shows how powerful theater can be and what medium it can be, no matter if it's online, if it's in person. We can still find that beauty and that universality that we find in every theater performance. So, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna basically say the same thing. Like, I think that this is a milestone, and it kind of shows how much perseverance and how amazing everyone in theater is, because even when we literally have all the obstacles in the world against us, we're still we're still doing what we love, and nothing is going to get in the way of that. And I think that's beautiful and amazing that we just decided we're still doing it. We're still going to design. We're going to act, and we're going to direct, and we're going to keep doing what we always do. And I'm so honored to be a part of this, and I love every single person that has been a part of this. So I'm just very, very grateful.
Yeah, I think this show, more than any other show, taught me to really trust my instinct as a director and as an artist. Despite the fact that we only had 2.5 weeks of rehearsal before we started the recording process, we didn't have time to really dwell and think on anything. We just kind of had to go with our gut instinct, make a decision, and that's just what it was. We were able to go back and change our mind on a couple of things, and of course fix and tweak certain aspects. But for the very beginning process, when we were coming up with, this is our vision, this is our plan, we just had to trust that instinct, and we just had to stick with it and carry that. And when in doubt, if we didn't know what to do, we just fell back on that plan and that instinct and let that inspire and remain consistent for the rest of the way.
Yeah, and everyone said really smart things. I don't even know how much I have to add to that, but theater has been a dying art for so long now, and we keep persevering, keep coming back, and that's for a reason. I think there will always be a theater, even if we're 6 feet apart and wearing masks, or together through Zoom. And then, from a more personal, maybe selfish actor standpoint, what a show stripped from blocking, stripped from tech week, stripped from all these things has kind of taught me is to really focus and dive in on the human experience, which is why we become actors in the first place, and what portraying that human experience can do to others. So those are the two things I think I'd take with me.
I think the first thing I would have to say is that this process really shows that theater people are unstoppable. That we have taken on 2020 and Miss Rona and have overcome them. Because we've survived Tech Week, so what's this? I think that it shows that, after my initial freak out over going from live to virtual, because it was bound to happen, especially when you know that you have to come up with new designs, I wasn't really too worried because I actually knew I was at Rollins. And the basic thing about this theater company specifically is we make things happen against all odds. Newer people might not be aware, but last year we were told 2 days before spring break that we were getting kicked off of campus to go into quarantine and move to a virtual setting. And within those 2 days, we put on a play in 1 day that I also was designing. We put on our senior send-off, and we had our senior improv show. So I think it really shows that we are capable of adapting to any challenge because we are a necessary art form. The world needs theater, and we will make it happen one way or another.
Just want to say thank you one more time, all of you, for making this such a possibility. I wasn't sure I'd ever see this play again, so it's really wonderful to have gotten to experience it in such a different way and in such an honest way, in a way that makes everything feel a lot more okay right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Sienna. Thank you, everyone. Well, that question, I think, is a perfect way to end the talk back today. So I want to thank, of course, all of my guests and my friends for joining me today. And of course, big, huge thank you to Sienna for everything you've done for this process, for creating this play, to talking with the cast, and of course, joining us for the talk back. So thank you so much for that opportunity. It was such a blast, and thank you everyone who came, joined us on the talk back, and watched the show. There are still a couple more opportunities to see it. If you want to see it again, tell your friends. All you got to do is email boxoffice@rollins.edu for that link for a future date. So thank you all so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day.